Welcome to this Arnold Culliford tutorial on modular knitting. This video is part of our Confident Knitting series, 12 patterns to teach you 12 new techniques from the world's best knitting designers. Modular knitting is all about joining different sections of knitting together as you go. There are lots of different methods to achieve the joining process, and today's tutorial is going to demonstrate the method used by Emily Kay Williams in her beautiful Findhorn Wrap, and it uses yarn overs at the end of the row and picking them up in order to join them together to give this attractive eyelet detail as the strips are joined. This video consists of different sections, and if you hover over the time bar along the bottom here, then you'll be able to see those chapters and jump to the one that you need. We'll be covering how to pick up and knit a yarn over from the border row, as well as picking up and knitting these yarn overs down the sides of the strips. And I'll also be showing you how to work a yarn over at the start of a knit row and also at the start of a purl row. I'm going to be using this mini version of the wrap that we've worked in a double knit weight yarn so that it's easier for you to see what's going on. The number of stitches and rows are obviously different in the actual pattern, but the processes are going to be exactly the same. So the Findhorn Wrap is worked as a series of strips, and there are 4 strips in the actual pattern. And at the beginning of strips 2, 3 and eventually 4, we're going to be picking up and knitting a yarn over from the border row, and I thought it'd be helpful to show you how that looks. So I've returned my stitches from my waste yarn onto my left needle tip, and your needle tip is going to be pointing at the strip that you've just worked. You're going to insert your left needle tip from the front to the back into this yarn over here. It's the one that was worked on the border row. So the border row had a series of yarn overs. This yarn over here was worked on the border row, and it's actually attached to that first stitch on your needle. It has also already been joined to the previous strip. So don't let that put you off. This is the correct yarn over that we're looking for. And what you're going to do is you're going to use your left needle and you're going to go from front to back into that yarn over that's just very much at the base of the knitting there. Then all you need to do is to knit that stitch, and we're going to be joining in a new length of yarn each time. So you're going to insert the needle into the stitch just as you normally would, wrap the yarn around and pull the loop through, and in doing so you've now picked up and knitted that first yarn over at the base of the strip. And you then just need to carry on working in pattern as your instructions tell you to. So we're now working 2 together and carrying on according to our instructions. And you can see now that we have a stitch above that yarn over from the beginning of the row. I'm now going to show you how to pick up and knit a yarn over from the adjacent strip, and this is what creates this lovely eyelet effect where the 2 strips of knitting are joined. The first thing to do is to make sure that the working yarn is at the rear of the work, ready to knit, and then we're going to use our left needle tip to pick up the yarn over from the adjacent strip. So here is the yarn over that's already been joined, and here is the next free yarn over that we're going to join, and we're going to use the left needle tip to go into that yarn over from front to back, and that orients the stitch correctly on the needles. You're always looking for the right hand side of the yarn over to be on the front of the needle. Once you've done that, you're going to knit that stitch. So put your needle into it as normal, wrap the yarn round and pull through, and then you continue in the pattern as instructed. So on this row we're working a knit 2 together and then knitting to the end. And once you've done a couple of stitches, you can look back and you can see that that yarn over is now joined in, and we've only got one more before the colour change. In order to set yourself up for joining the next strip, we need to have a series of yarn overs down the edge of the strip we're working on. And so I'm going to show you now how to work a yarn over at the start of a knit row. So you're going to bring your right hand needle, obviously ready to work the first stitch on the needle, and you're going to bring the working yarn from the front over the needle, over the top and right round to the rear. And we're then going to insert our right needle into the first stitch of the next row. Now obviously you could go in knitwise if you were needing to work a knit 1, but we're actually working a knit 2 together at the beginning of this row, so we need to go into the first 2 stitches. So we can see that our working yarn here has come from the front over the top of the needle. We've now got our needle into our knit 2 together, and we just wrap the yarn round as normal and bring it through. And as you can see, that creates a yarn over and that knit 2 together stitch on the needle. I'm just going to briefly show you that again. So the yarn's at the front. We bring the needle up so that the yarn is going from the front over the top, and we then insert the needle into the stitches knitwise. It doesn't matter whether it's a single knit or a knit 2 together, and then seeing that yarn going round, we wrap it round and bring it to the front and pull it through, and we can then continue in pattern to the end of our row. Now I'm going to show you how to work a yarn over at the start of the row before a purl type stitch. On this row we're going to be working purl 2 together, but it works in the same way if you're just doing a normal purl stitch. So you're going to hold the working yarn over your right needle tip, bringing it from the front of the needle over the top of the needle to the rear of the work, and you're then going to continue wrapping it all the way around to the front of the work so that you are ready to purl. And this makes a complete circuit of that needle tip to make that first yarn over. So I'll just quickly show you that again. So put the needle behind the working yarn, bring the working yarn over the very top of the needle and then back between the needle tips right round to the front of the work. And you then are all set to insert your right needle into your first stitch or stitches on your left needle tip, and you can purl them together or just purl them as normal and pull it through. And you can now very clearly see that you've got a yarn over sitting on the needle before that first stitch. And you then will just carry on in pattern according to your instructions. I hope you found this tutorial showing you the different skills required for modular knitting of the Findhorn Wrap helpful. We're able to keep our video tutorials free from adverts thanks to the support of our amazing customers. You can find out more about Confident Knitting and purchase the book or ebook by clicking the link up top here. And you can be sure of catching our next video tutorial by subscribing to our YouTube channel with the button at the bottom right. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye bye.